Welcome to the Dreams of Consciousness podcast. If you'd be so kind, would you mind introducing yourself?
Yeah, I'm Henrik Levahn, the singer and guitarist of the Swedish band Horndal. And
And
you want more? Yeah, we just yeah, sure.
yeah, go ahead.
We just released our new record. Yeah, and I guess why we're talking here, Adrian, is because we just released our new record, our third album called Head Hammerman, and it's a record and it's a book. And so it's a weird project, but I guess we're gonna talk about it later on here.
And Henrik, how would you describe the music of Horndal?
The music of Horndal is kind of the blend between four different people. It's my brother who is writing the music, most of it, but the bands we have in common is, I guess, Black Sabbath and Entombed and Thin Lizzy, actually. And my brother, he comes from the kind of the punk and the hardcore and nowadays the weird prog stuff and things like that. And so it's kind of a blend between all this kind of. It's kind of hard to describe. When Americans talk about it, they say it's sludge. Sludge is not a genre in Sweden. We don't know what sludge is, but if you want to call us sludge, please do. We call it rusty metal because of the story of our steel mill that don't exist anymore, and we come from this depressing place called Horndal.
So similar to what's known as the Rust Belt in the US, is Horndal a place where there was a lot of industry and then the industries vanished?
Yeah, exactly. We share the same stories with the Rust Belt in America and the Black Country in Great Britain and Ruhr in Germany. You have these areas all around the world, and as it happened in the 70s in America and all over the world when the industrial crisis came, Horndal went from a flourishing small little town with 2,000 or 3,000 people to nowadays it's like 800. Just one shop, no nothing. It's kind of a ghost town, honestly.
And so you
But I
mentioned
love it.
Well, why do you love it?
Yeah, because it's my hometown. That's where I grew up, and still have friends there, even though we're a lot less people. But I had some years when I didn't want to. I didn't live in Horndal for a lot of years, but now I bought a house south of Horndal, so I'm slowly coming back to it, and I truly love it.
So
When you get older, your childhood means more and more for you, I guess.
yeah.
For me, at least.
So you
Yeah.
mentioned the Black County in the UK and the Ruhr Valley
Yeah.
in in Germany.
In
Coincidentally,
Germany.
coincidentally, all these places became big hotbeds for metal. Do you find that your
Yeah.
surroundings and the place that you grew up really influenced the kind of music that you like, or influences you now when you make music?
When I was 15, Horndal was called Heavy Horndal. Everybody listened to metal from Horndal. Everybody. And it was said like with a smirk in the face from the guys from the bigger town called Avesta. And they were like listening to new romantic, like Spandau Ballet and such rubbish. And but we were listening to metal. And Horndal is from from Sweden, and Judas Priest and Black Sabbath is from the Black Country. So I guess you're right there. Are Scorpions from the Ruhr? Is Hanover in the Ruhr area? I'm not sure about that, but maybe we have other German bands that.
Yeah, like Creator and Sodom,
Do you
I think,
still
are all
hear me here,
from.
Adrian, or do I
Yeah,
have a?
yeah. Can you hear me?
Oh, yeah, Creator and Sodom is from.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. It went silent, so it just asking. Okay, so Creator and Sodom is from the Ruhr area. Actually,
Yeah.
we have a song on the record called Lake Drinker, called Ruhr. That when I'm just screaming all these places all around the world that has been abandoned. So listen to that song if you want to know some depressing geography lesson.
So I do need to bring up one of your band members is Daniel Ekeroth, who
Yeah,
listeners will know as from writing a not just a book about Swedish death metal, but the book about Swedish death metal.
the Swedish death metal professor.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he's
Um,
and he's actually from. Sorry, I interrupted you, but he's from a small town called Fors. Sounds like force in English. Sounds really cool, but it's like 10 minutes from Horndal, and we went to the same high school. So he studied in Horndal, and we became friends. We were like 14. So he's from the area.
so I only have a general understanding of the geography of Sweden. Like I know where Gothenburg is and Stockholm, Umeå.
Yeah,
In
yeah.
relation to Stockholm, where's Horndal? How far is it?
It's like 2 hours north.
Okay.
Northwest, so to speak. So it's in the middle of the country,
Okay.
and these our black country is called Bergslagen, and there is there and that is the abandoned place of Sweden nowadays.
And uh, you yourself wrote a book, which we'll discuss in some detail in a little bit. But
Yeah,
before we get
yeah.
there, can you tell me a little bit about the origins of the band Horndal? Did it start with you and your brother?
It started with me and my brother. He's 12 years younger than me, and I taught him how to play when he was a kid, and he got much better than me. So he went to be a professional musician, and I and then we decided like 8 years ago that we should start playing together, and the story is so connected with Horndal. We decided that we wanted to call ourselves Horndal, and during the crisis in the 70s, my parents were a part of this theatrical group, very left wing, having this play like a protest play about the when the steel mill was shut down. And this play was about the devil that came to Horndal, took the steel mill and all the money, and left the people to kind of die. And how metal is that? The devil comes to the steel mill. So we kind of felt we had the story there. So the first record, we just took some of the stories from that play. There were some songs, and I translated the lyrics, and we made new music to it. All of a sudden, we saw the news that Google was about to build new what is it called, server facilities in Horndal, and they cut down a lot of trees and deforest a big area, and decided that they wanted to use our lake as a cooling system for their servers. And there we had this great story. We thought that now the devil is back in town, and the devil is Google. So then we made our second album called Lake Drinker. And then all of a sudden we stumble upon this story that I guess we're going to talk about soon on the third record. So that's kind of how the band evolved the last years until now.
So with the taking inspiration from Google setting up their servers, as well as the strike that you wrote about on this most recent record, you write
Yeah.
about a lot of labor issues and a lot of environmental issues, a lot of real world issues. Do you consider Horndal to be a political band, maybe a historical band?
We're a metal band, but we think it's more interesting to write about real stuff. You know, the dragons and the swords and all that. That is for the other bands. We are about to tell the story about our hometown, and we when we do that, it tend to be political because you have this that problem. I don't know. America has a problem as well, and with all these areas where people are suffering. And we want to describe the situation in Horndal, and it can get political, but that's not the purpose. The purpose is to tell the story about our hometown.
And so when you and Pontus put the band together, uh, did you have a clear idea? I mean, you mentioned some bands like
Mm-hmm.
Black Sabbath and Entombed. Did you have a clear idea of what kind of music you wanted
Mm-hmm.
Horndal to make?
Yeah, it was supposed to be like heavy music, riff based music, but we were certain that we didn't want it to sound like metal. Is it? We know we wanted it to sound scary in some ways. Metal has become um, like music for families. And with these compressed sounds, with all the computers and the rigged drums and stuff like that. We wanted it to be as acoustic as possible. We're not using any kind of that kind of stuff. It's real amps, real instruments, really old drums recorded properly. And I guess we're going to talk about that, about the new record, because that is total madness talking about that. So scary, hard, organic music.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So before we talk about the new record, I just want to touch on your songwriting a little bit. You mentioned that your brother Pontus writes most of the music.
Mm-hmm.
Does he demo stuff with
Mm-hmm.
a computer or
He
anything
does.
like that, or uh, do you guys jam stuff out?
It's mostly his work. Actually, I have to give him that. He's a kind of a genius writing all these songs. But he had this his musical taste is so wide, and for every new record, he's letting more and more of that kind of odd influences into it. So I'm totally focused on the lyrics, and when I listen to the songs, because he sends me like these demos, uh, and uh, I listen to them, and then we kind of meet up in the rehearsing room and work with it. But it's his work, and uh, yeah, I'm so amazed, and sometimes it's so weird stuff that it sends me. It some of the songs on this record I couldn't believe. Is this really Horndal? Can this sound like us? But in the end, it kind of did. I think, even if it's a more wider range of music on this one.
So on the 5th of April, Prosthetic Records released your third album, Head Hammerman,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
a book of the same name, which you wrote, was also released.
yeah.
Uh, Tell me about the Head Hammerman. Who is he?
The head hammerman is a guy from Sweden called Ulrik Andersson, and he was a smith at the steel mill in Horndal, and that is actually his working title that he got later on in his life. And he was 28. No, it was 27 years when chose him as the leader of the trade union, the local trade union in Horndal in 1909, the same year as we had this great general strike in Sweden that he was kind of unprepared happening in. And it became very violent in especially in Horndal during that time, because they started to evict the workers, the unionized workers, from their homes, and there came a lot of people from all of Sweden to take part in the protests, and the military came, and the workers got guns and dynamite, and Sweden were on the verge of a civil war there. So the prime minister decided that he had to stop this, just to prevent the risk of a civil war. And and Ulrik, the union leader, started to negotiate with the bosses at the steel mill, and he made them to take them all back. They got the jobs back, their homes back, except for one man, and that was Ulrik, because he got blacklisted in the same moment as the other guys got their work back. So to be blacklisted in Sweden at that time, that made it impossible for him to get any job anywhere in Sweden. So he had to exile to America, and he went to Chicago, and there he started working at Columbia Steel at Chicago Heights, and there he became the head hammerman, and here he is.
Very cool.
If you can see it.
Yeah, absolutely. And so that's the book that you wrote.
So yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
are you a journalist or a novelist
No,
by profession? No?
I'm a writer. I'm writing stuff. Yeah, I'm a professional writer in some ways. Yeah, and I write different stuff. But I'm a teacher from the get-go. So in Swedish and literature and music.
Yeah. And so from our conversation,
that's what I do.
Okay. So from our conversation, I can tell that you're very interested in the history and the the way that the history affects the culture and the present day, and in your hometown. And so it seems like a very natural topic to write about Ulrik. But in terms of the undertaking for writing a book, I mean, this is a from what I understand, a very long book. I believe it's almost 400 pages.
Yeah, it's 400 pages. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, what led you to choose to go on this endeavor? Why was this an important story for you to tell?
I think at first it was about a guy from Horndal that is kind of crucial for our band. Then, all these immigrant stories about Swedes that came to America, that is, for me, such a vivid story, because we have family there. As you can you see my hat here? That's Levahn Brothers. This is a plumbing company. This is a plumbing company from Minnesota.
Oh, cool.
So So it's all we traded merch. So they are working in Horndal t-shirts, and I got their hat. So it feels great, So this is so Swedes are still thinking about these immigrant stories. 1.5 million Swedes went. Sorry, I have to put this sound. It's my daughter that are texting me. Just a second. Hope it goes away now. 1.5 million Swedes went to America, and in Sweden there are novels and stories about it, and most of the stories is about the guys that went to Minnesota, became farmers. But the story that most of Swedes went to be industrial workers in Chicago. Chicago was the second biggest town in Sweden 120 years ago. There were more Swedes in Chicago than in Gothenburg. So all these stories has always such interest for me. I'm reading about it so much. And when I found Ulrich, I couldn't help myself. I opened an ancestry account and started researching him. Not my own relatives, but I found him, and I found his relatives in America. And nowadays, one of my best friends is his granddaughter, and she's 76 years old, living in Los Angeles, and her name is Holly. And when we had the book release here, she came with his husband to Sweden, and I got the possibility to take her to Horndal and show her where Ulrich lived and where the evictions took place and where the steel mill was that is now a ruin and stuff like that. It was a very touchy moment for me. And yeah, is that I'm I can't stop thinking about these immigrant stories. That is kind of a sickness that I have.
So from initially discovering Ulrich and doing the research on his ancestry and where his descendants ended up, to you writing the book, how long did this process take?
I started with writing the lyrics for the record, and but I realized that like 8 bars it's not enough. Yeah, I need more words. So I decided quite early on that it has to be a book, and it took me 3 years with all the research. I've been to archives all over Sweden. And on ancestry and doing interviews and stuff like that, and then the writing process and stuff like that, and then my editor erased like 1/3 of the book, and so good to know that it was actually a lot longer.
So it was almost a 600-page book.
Yeah, it was. It's me. I told you it's a sickness that I have. It was more like a Game of Thrones big kind of. But no, I have to. She was right and I was wrong, and yeah. But now it's quite easy to read, and it's. I wrote it like not like a thriller, but it's meant to be like, what do you call it? A page turner. You really, I want the people to be curious what happens on the next page. So that's quite. It seems that people tell me that it's they are accusing me for messing their nightly sleep because they've been reading all night and stuff like that. And it's very, very nice to hear.
Now, as you mentioned, you were already thinking of this as being the concept for a Horndal album.
Yeah.
When did you and Pontus sit down and start discussing the music and how the music would flow for the story?
He already started to. He has already started to write the music. And I was like, I was so amazed when he sent me all this music, because then I had the story in my head, because it wasn't a hard sell for him. I said, I found this guy. he went to America, became a head hammer man. Have you heard? Can anything be more metal than a head hammer man? So
Right.
you know, and then okay, let go, do that, and then when I listened to the songs, I felt okay. This song must be about the evictions, the violent evictions with the military and you know, stuff like that. And the song that is called "Call Labor," I just saw the imagery of when they came to Ellis Island and what happened there, you know. And have you seen the cover?
No, but please hold that up so
Here it
everyone can
is.
take a look at it.
Yeah, here's Al, and this is actually this this is a what is it called when you're playing with you know, it's a, what do you call it, a board play, when you play like this with you turn the dice with dices and stuff like that.
Okay,
During the
like
general
a roulette
strike
wheel.
yeah, no, more like you turn a dice and then you move some stuff, you know. I got a three, like 1, 2, 3.
Okay,
So the inspiration comes from that, because they made that kind of a game in during the strike, and I found this picture and it looked like this, and then we our illustrator helped us. So every piece here is one song. So here is famine. Is the Grim Reaper. You know, we had famine during the strike, so and stuff like that. You know,
right.
so that is a record.
Okay,
One weird thing. Can I tell you another weird thing?
sure.
I know this savant lady. You know, I found a lot of handwritten letters from Ulrich to his wife and to, you know, to Stockholm during the strike, and she copied his handwriting. So this is her writing, Ulrich's handwriting, all the lyrics here. It's kind of amazing. You know, she's a really savant lady. Big up to Agnes Prince. Yeah.
Very cool. So
Yeah.
the book is a historical novel. Is it told in a straightforward beginning to end way?
No, it's you know, it's quite chronological, but the editor that made me take away 1/3 of the book, she told me that we need to know about you. So write some chapters about. So then I wrote my life in short pieces through the book. So from 1909, suddenly it's 1973, and I'm 3 years old. You know, stuff like that. But it's very short. No, yeah. So,
Okay.
but beside from that, it's quite from the start to end. What happened to him?
Okay. Well, what about the lyrics for the album? Is that a narrative that you
Hmm?
can follow from beginning to end, or is it more about the themes of his life?
You know, on the record, we made the, you know, we arranged the songs on a more of a musical manner. You know, it's not the chronological. It's not a musical, but it can be if you choose them in a different way. We did a Swedish podcast, sadly in Swedish, when we told the story and played the songs in the correct order, so to speak, and made it like a musical. Yeah.
So you mentioned that you don't like the way that a lot of modern metal is being recorded. It's very uh, produced and overly reliant on technology. When you guys recorded this, did you record live? Were you in the studio together?
Most of it, and but the drum parts were kind of crucial, because Pontus had this vivid idea, and about a record that we listened to when we were kids, and it's the first kind of rock album that was made in Sweden in 1970 by a guy called Pug Rogefeldt. You should check him out. And on that record, there's a Swedish drummer called Loffe Karlsson, who was a part of a band called Hansson and Karlsson that actually jammed and played with Jimi Hendrix. And there are some recordings with these three guys, organ and drums. And Pontus fell in love with that kind of drum sound. So we decided to go to the exact studio. It's actually the studio that ABBA was recording the records in. And we put the drums. We've seen all these pictures of the recording on this Pug Rogefeldt album. So we put the drums at the exact spot, and we used the same mics because they're still there, really old mics, and put them at the exact positions where Loffe Karlsson had them in 1970. And you can actually hear it at best in a song called Famine, where it starts with this drum beat. This drum beat was by Loffe Karlsson on that record. The song is called Love, Love, Love. You should check it out. This is really aggressive drumming, and the sound is really annoying, actually. And there is a American DJ called DJ Shadow. Have you ever heard of him? It's not metal. It's not, it's electronic. It's electronic music. But he sampled this Swedish record on one of his hit songs. So it's been heard outside of Sweden as well.
The studio where you recorded was Atlanta Studios?
Yeah, Atlantis. Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly.
Who is the team who worked on the recording, the engineering, and the mixing?
Yeah, it was it's co-produced with a guy called Anton Sundell. He is he's a really clever guy, but he mostly works with like jazz stuff like that, and with a band called Tonbruket, which you probably not have heard of, but it's the keyboard player from the band Soundtrack of Our Lives. If you maybe remember them, it was like a psychedelic rock band in the 90s. And actually, the keyboard player appears on our record now. So it is Anton and us, and Anton mixed it as well. And then I actually don't remember the name of the guys who mastered it, but so it was Anton and us, and mostly Pontus with the mixing.
Okay. So you mentioned that the studio was responsible for a lot of classic records. Were you guys, there was a strong psychedelic and almost prog rock feeling to this album. Were you guys trying to get a classic, almost 70s kind of sound to this?
Yeah, it came naturally when we decided to use this really wide drum sound, and we decided to not doing a reamping at all. We decided to use like big muff fuzz pedals and playing the guitars through bass amps, and that combined with this really strange and airy kind of guitar sounds that and some of it sounds like the Shadows, I think, this really punky guitar playing. So it I don't know, yeah, but it's a lot of 70s influences. Of course it is.
So you mentioned that Anton contributed to this album as well as engineering the album. You also had a few other guests contribute to this album as well, right?
Yeah, we had. For example, Martin Hederos, who was the keyboard player of a quite known Swedish band called Soundtrack of Our Lives. They hit it off in the 90s. Were kind of popular in the UK. I don't know about America actually, but they were really great. And him and I went to music college together. So he went away with Soundtrack of Our Lives, and then we kind of met again. And he's playing really great organ stuff. And then we have these horns that are played by a fantastic guy called David Bryntesson. But not to forget Henrik Palm. Maybe you know about him. He's an artist himself. Fantastic songwriter and a guitarist. So he plays two of the solos on the record. Yeah, that was really great.
Yeah.
So I guess that is the guest musicians on the record, if I haven't forgotten anyone. But I think so. Yeah. Oh, my best friend Pelle Jakobsson from the Royal Symphonic Orchestra. He's the percussionist. So if you hear the anvil, the hammer that hits the anvil at the beginning of the record, that's him.
That's great. Did he have to use
Yeah.
a special type of hammer? Like what's the process of recording?
Yeah.
The hammer?
It's quite. Have you seen anybody playing the anvil? Because this is an actual instrument in classical music. But it is what it is. It's the same piece that you use in a forge. You know, it's a metal hammer and an anvil that you hit. That is that. You know,
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So you mentioned Henrik from In Solitude and Ghost, and Martin from the Soundtrack of Our Lives. Did you know them? Did you know them well before you asked them to guest on the album?
Yeah, Martin is a friend of mine, so that was easy to talk to him. And Pontus is a friend of Henrik Palm, so that was kind of easy. And we have gigged together in Sweden as well. We're going to do that in a couple of weeks. We're going to play Oslo and Gothenburg together, so it's going to be great.
Very cool. So at the time we're having this conversation, the album has been out for a little bit, and the book has been out as well. I'm curious what the reaction was in Sweden to this this piece of history that you wrote about, and the album that is inspired by it.
Yeah, we are totally blown away about the reactions here. The reviews are so good, not even just from the Swedish area and from the UK. And when you get a kind of I can't take it in how positive people are about it. I guess maybe the music stuff. I guess people are, like I said, tired of this overproduced metal music where the danger has disappeared. It's like bodybuilding music. It's not scary anymore. So I guess people are kind of wanted that. I feel that though, and it's very humbling about the book. This story about this man, because this kind of happened at the same time where we have this strike we have this conflict. The trade union, the metal trade union, had this conflict in Sweden with Tesla.
Right.
Where the trade union, we have this model in Sweden that where the bosses and the union are kind of negotiating once a year, and they have this deal that was made in 1935, and both parts have been honoring this situation since that, and because of that, we don't have any strikes in Sweden. But then Elon Musk came to Sweden with Tesla and refused to follow this old deal that we are doing here. So then we had this strike, and and it kind of it felt like this kind of a same story that happened in not with violence and military, but Ulrich Anderson, if he had lived these days, he probably has been involved in that strike with Tesla, I guess. And kind of feel that the history repeats itself.
Yeah.
Um,
And honestly,
yeah.
that's one of the reasons why it was important for me to cover this album and to speak with you guys about it, because at the time that we're having this conversation, this very week, just a few days ago, there was an important victory for the United Auto Workers Union in the U.S. And in recent years,
Yeah.
there've been all these struggles against big companies like Amazon, Starbucks, union workers trying to
Hmm.
organize.
Hmm.
And so Ulrich has been dead for I don't know
Since 1970.
since 1970.
Yeah, yeah.
But the struggle that he was a part of, I think, is never ending. I
Hmm.
think we're always going to find, especially with this new gig economy, tech economy, app economy that's
Exactly.
coming up.
Yeah.
There's always going to be this battle
Yeah.
between the working man and these kind
Yeah.
of pernicious
Yeah.
forces that try to take advantage of us.
Yeah. And I think that like young people that are born with their iPhones in their hand, and this world of individuality. Yeah. The way to get together and unionize is kind of it's not that hip, it's not that cool to do that. Like in Sweden, it's like I'm 25, I don't need the union, but hey, when something happens, you really need them. And hopefully this in Sweden, no matter if you're a right wing or a left wing, people are behind the union here against Elon Musk to the most part. And I hope that it stays that way, and that we can. I think the solution is that we have to, the small people has to get together, like they did in America, like you said.
So as somebody who
Good
wrote
for them.
extensively, yeah. So as somebody who wrote extensively about Alric and covered his life, researched his life, who would you say reminds you of Alric? Who do you think a modern day Alric would be?
Yeah, who would it be in these days? I think he would like be. He was, his granddaughter said he was like a guy who saw things in black or white, right or wrong, and he paid a hard price for that because he had high moral standards, I guess. So I guess people will look at him like a problem guy, I guess, useful for his people, but for the corporates, he would definitely be a problem, because he was willing to pay the high price, and he did.
Yeah. So you mentioned shows in Oslo, and I think you said Gothenburg.
Yeah. Now in May we're playing Oslo, Gothenburg, and Stockholm, and the weekend after that we're going to play at the Desert Fest in London. So that's going to be great. It's our first gig outside Scandinavia, so really looking forward to that. And I want and hope, and then we have some dates in Europe, in Germany and Poland, and maybe Serbia actually in the fall. So we're looking forward to that. So we want to tell the world the story of Ulrich.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's a very important story to tell.
I think
So
so too.
the story of Ulrich is called Head Hammerman, and it's out now through Prosthetic Records. Henrik, please tell everyone how they can order
Yeah,
the album and get the book. What's the best way to get both of them?
yeah. Yeah, if you want the English version, I guess we're talking English, you will find the book at Amazon. Just search for Head Hammerman and you will find it. And the record, yeah, it's available on all kind of digital sites, Amazon, but of course, Prosthetic Records and our Bandcamp. Just search for Horndal and you will find it. Yeah, and if you want like merchandise, you will go to a Swedish website called tnor.se. tnor.se. There you find all our t-shirts and stuff like that. And follow us on Instagram and Facebook. No, this is the uncomfortable part of this. Yeah, we're on every kind of platform there.
Yeah, cool. So did Prosthetic release any? I mean, by the time people hear this episode, I think all the vinyl versions might be sold out. But did Prosthetic do any special editions for this?
It is made in different colors. The vinyl is in different colors. We have this orange version that we call malted steel. It looked like orange malted steel. And then we have the Union Red, of course. And then there is a gray one. And I actually don't know what kind of colors they have in America right now. But yeah, they keep doing new ones. Very annoying for the collectors if they want to have it all. Yeah. And I guess that's the purpose. Not our fault, though, I have to tell you. Yeah. So they keep on, yeah, and there's a CD, of course. We wanted to do the cassette, we didn't have the possibility.
Maybe in the future.
Hopefully, last record was made on cassette. It's really cool, I think. So let's see.
So now, is Head Hammerman your first full novel? Is this your first book?
Yeah, it is. It is. And I've been ghostwriting stuff in my work. I don't want to talk about it, but I've been writing a lot. But this is my first novel, and yeah, how do you move on from this? I don't know. Yeah.
Well, it sounds like
but
there's
it's been
it sounds like you have a lot of inspiration just in your own town. I mean, I'm curious if there's other it's a far-reaching thing.
Yeah.
These these industrial towns that kind of rise and fall with the changing of industries. I'm curious if you have ideas on what the next album or what the next book might be.
Yeah, we're discussing it in the moment, but there's some things going on. Not sure what it's going to be. I have these old guys in Horndal that are kind of sending me all this material. I got this story. There were actually a wolf in Horndal that killed a lot of kids when they were going with food to their fathers to the steel mill in the 1880, like a long time ago. That sounded really like the Red Hood and the Wolf fairy tale. But I know that's maybe one song, not an album. So we're not sure where we're gonna end up on next record. I asked Pontus for some Judas Priest riffs. I want to play on the A string. It's
Nice.
a long time ago since I had to play on the A string. I like that.
Very cool. So you've been very generous with
Yeah.
your time, but is there anything else you want to say?
Come shows, and if you have a club, book us. We will come anywhere. We would love to come to play anywhere in the world. We want to meet you guys.
Very cool. Tack så mycket, Henrik.
Tack så mycket. Kan du svenska?
A little bit.
Do you know Swedish?